Cool. And that first slide actually is good. I thought it was a little off. You don't.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Andrew.
You're exactly right. That's great, but yeah, you're right. I always thought for a while, or yeah,
Good afternoon, folks. We might as well get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Creative BC Speaker Series. And just a little bit of housekeeping. I just want to let you know that some of our partners with the Provincial Nominee Program are exhibiting at SIGGRAPH at booth 337. These are, the Provincial Nominee Program is administered by the Province of BC and provides immigration pathways for high-demand foreign workers, international students, and experienced entrepreneurs who seek to become permanent residents in BC. So if you're looking for more information on that topic, feel free to head down to booth 337 and talk to the folks at the P&P booth. That'll be, I guess, this afternoon and also all day tomorrow. So our session today is the second of 3 sessions that Creative BC has been presenting throughout SIGGRAPH. The third session is happening tomorrow at 9 a.m. with a panel of speakers from studios that include DNEG, Marvel Studios, Acomic Cartoons, ILM, and EA Sports, who will be exploring the innovative approaches studios are taking to increase diversity in the workplace. And that's tomorrow right here at 9 a.m. Now, following today's speakers, Creative BC is hosting a networking session right next door from here from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And please join us there for some light refreshments, and an opportunity to meet and ask questions with our two speakers, Joe Massey and Mark Wiebe. So today, Joe and Mark will be reviewing and introducing government programs and incentives in the VR and AR industry as it relates to tax credits and the BC Interactive Digital Media Tax Credit. Joe Massey has been Manager of Corporate Income Tax and Integrated Operations for the BC Ministry of Finance's Income Taxation Branch since 2012. It's a long sentence. He oversees a portfolio of provincial tax credits that include the Film and Television Tax Credit, Production Services Tax Credit, and the Interactive Digital Media Tax Credit. He is a chartered professional accountant and holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Manitoba's Asper School of Business. Beside him, Mark Wiebe has been with the BC Ministry of Finance Income Taxation Branch since 2006 and is the lead auditor and team lead for the BC Interactive Digital Media Tax Credit. Mark is also a chartered professional accountant. Please welcome Mr. Joe Massey and Mr. Mark Wiebe.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, well, now for everybody's favorite subject, tax. All right. Yeah, I'm Joe Massey. I'm with the province of British Columbia. I'm with the Ministry of Finance. I'm in the income tax branch, and as Paul pointed out, I manage a portfolio of provincial tax credits, mostly in innovation and media. So that includes things like the film tax credit, the production services tax credit, the interactive digital media tax credit, the scientific research and experimental development tax credit, and there's going to be a test on that, so don't forget. Today, though, I'm going to talk about my favorite tax credit, and that's the IDMTC. It's often referred to as the video game tax credit, and that's because that's the medium that this credit is most readily applied to. But it does apply to augmented reality and virtual reality, so that probably interests a lot of folks in this room here. So today I will walk you through, there we go. Today I'll walk you through the IDMTC. I'm going to explain what type of tax credit it is, who's eligible for it, what they're eligible for, but I also want to show you the virtual reality, the augmented reality portion of the tax credit, so I'll get into a bit of that as well. Maybe before I start, though, what I wouldn't mind knowing is how many people here are with a BC corporation? Okay, all right, okay, that's good. So you guys would be more interested in it because you have to be a BC corporation. For those of you coming into BC, then this will be something for the future. Okay. So like I said, the IDMTC is a provincial tax credit. That means you can only claim it if you are paying taxes in the province of British Columbia. It's also a refundable tax credit. So that means that if all your taxes are paid in the year, any amount left over from the tax credit, that gets refunded to you. So you actually get cash for this one. The credit is based on salaries. So that means you need to be paying BC-based employees. So you can't be paying dividends. Dividends don't work for this credit, but most people are T4ing people. The credit is worth 17.5% of eligible salaries and wages. So this means if you have like $3 million in salaries, if my math is correct, you're going to get a tax credit back of $525,000. I'll let you guys do the math if you know what your corporation's salary range is, but it's a pretty good credit. The credit's been around for 8 years. It was created to support the interactive digital media industry. So at the time, that was mostly video games. So that's really how this was envisioned, as video games. But the language in the legislation was sort of meant to say, let's expand this beyond video games. Now, ordinarily, when I talk about legislation, I like to say, well, you know, I didn't write the legislation, I just administer it. In this case, I was actually one of the people that wrote the legislation. So if you don't like it, you can actually blame me for this one. But back in 2010, we wrote this. We did our best to say, okay, what does the industry look like? Where do we think the industry is going? Let's try to make it so it's a little more loosey and let's the industry expand. I got to admit, we thought about virtual reality, but it wasn't big on our heads at the time. Having said that, I do find a lot of virtual reality products and a lot of augmented reality products do fit the description here. I'm going to get to them in a second, I promise. So now let's get into some of the details of the tax credit. Yeah, so the tax credit is for corporations developing digital media products in BC. So your corporation needs to physically be making those products here in BC, and they need to be interactive digital media products. If your wages, the wages you pay directly to the development of IDM products is below $2 million, and there's some special rules you need to be aware of. So first off, you need to have at least $100,000 worth of salary wages for the production of digital media products. But so if your salary is above 100,000 but less than 2 million, then we get into a few rules. For instance, if you don't really make games or interactive digital media products, but you're almost exclusively work with people that do, then we consider you to be an IDM service provider. So as long as that's pretty much all you're doing, so folks that are kind of doing audio work for video game makers, they may also apply. They may also be eligible for this credit. But like I said, you may be eligible. You should probably chat with us first in that situation. So those are what we call IDM service providers. In most cases, though, it's going to be what we call a developer studio or a studio, people that make the video games or make these sorts of products. And in which case, if they're below $2 million in salaries, then they need to be in the business of making video games or developing interactive digital media products. So I mean, so that's sort of to say that's really what you do, more or less. So IDM service providers are the folks that do the audio and some of the artwork, and then the studios are the guys that actually make the products. So you can figure out what type of corporation you have here. So the only other thing you need to do to be eligible for this credit is actually to apply with us at the BC Ministry of Finance, and that's where Mark will come in at some point, and you'll be chatting with him eventually. So, who's eligible for this thing? Oh, sorry, actually, I should answer the question, who's not eligible for this thing? I'll go quickly through this because hopefully everybody here is eligible. Well, you can't register if you're a charity. I don't think anyone here is a charity. So you have to be what we call a taxable Canadian corporation. So you need to be a corporation that pays tax. If you're involved in the BC Venture Capital Corporation program, you may not be eligible. Now, having said that, the folks in the folks in the Small Business Venture Capital program are now eligible, but some of the other programs are not eligible for this program. So if you deal with the VCC program, the BC VCC program, you may want to give us a call first before going any further. If you run a personal services business, you're also not eligible. There we go. So, as I mentioned, the IDMTC is a refundable credit. It's worth 17.5% of eligible salaries and wages. So I think your next question is going to be, well, what are eligible salary and wages? So the slide here, that should give you an idea. But basically, these are salaries you pay for the development of video games or interactive digital media products, less any assistance you receive for those employees. So I think IRAP, I'm going to ask you a question here, Mark. IRAP, one of the big ones that we see.
Yeah, definitely. IRAP, Canada Media Fund. Those are two of the bigger ones.
Yeah, and shred's not considered assistance. So if you get the federal shred, that's not considered assistance for our purposes. And again, I'm talking about the federal shred because you can't claim the BC portion of shred, scientific research and experimental development. You can't claim the BC portion, but you can claim the federal portion. So that's eligible salaries. And the next is, so I mentioned eligible activities. What are the eligible activities? So first, you probably want to know what eligible activities are. Second, you're probably wondering, so what exactly is an interactive digital media product? So I've mentioned video games. Obviously, there's a bit more to it. So I'll start with the first question. The eligible activities are the activities your employees do to develop the interactive digital media products like video games. So the slideshow here shows a few examples of those activities. I mean, really note that it doesn't just include like computer programming. It also includes artwork and project management. What it doesn't include, though, is marketing. So marketing would not be one of the eligible activities. So now we get to the bigger question here. What is considered an interactive digital media product? Yeah, so the slide here shows mostly the legal definition of it. So So what it needs to be is a product that in digital format, it needs to be in digital format. It needs to be designed to primarily educate, inform, or entertain. It must present information in text, sound, or images, or at least two of those three. And it must be developed here in BC. And most importantly, it must be designed to be used interactively with an individual. So that's really the key there. So, I mean, really one of the best examples, one of the things that work best for this program is a video game. If you develop video games, you're probably good for this program. But it's not limited to just video games. The reason video games work is because it's really easy to say you're a participant in the game. You're using them interactively. We also some other products that we tend to have claimed a lot, or we call them edutainment games. Those seem to work a lot with the program. Maybe I'll just let Mark nail off a few of the other non-video games that we tend to see.
Simulators. Examples of edutainment products might include a language learning tool, sometimes training tools, and often if they're developed in a way that uses progression mechanics, or if they're gamified, that helps the users actually engage more in the product. So often they don't put these characteristics into the product to be eligible. They do it because they want the end result is engagement by the user with the software in question. So.
Just one quick question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Can you define the interactive part a little bit more? Because
I promise I'm going to get to it. I promise. Yeah. Spoiler alert, I'm going to go there too.
That's a key question. It has a very specific meaning for the purpose of this.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring you into this slowly, and then we'll get to the nitty gritty. Yeah, and I think what most of you guys in the room would really want to know though is is augmented reality and virtual reality, is that also something that's going to qualify? I see it all over the place here, so I can tell it's going to be the big question. Spoiler alert, usually it is. Usually it is. So here's my next slide. Yeah, so as I said, yes. But the key again is it needs to be used interactively. Here's something that I've been noticing here. A lot of folks are calling what I would refer to, and I think most folks in the industry even refer to it as a virtual reality film or virtual reality movie. I mean, really, they're 360 movies or films. Now, those aren't interactive, and I'll get to why they're not in a bit. But those are not considered used interactively, so those ones wouldn't work for the credit. They might work for the film tax credit, but they're not going to work for the IDMTC. What we're interested in is stuff where there's where you're being a participant. So as long as you're being a participant in the product, then you are probably eligible for it. But like I said, I'm going to get to that, I promise. So the 360 movies, those are usually out. The AR and the VR stuff, it needs to be used interactively. And it doesn't just need to be used for entertainment. That's actually another thing that I've seen kicked around. Folks are saying, well, it's got to be used just for entertainment. And that's not necessarily true. Remember I said it needs to inform, educate, or entertain. So you can still inform or educate somebody in a business setting, and that still works for the product. So it's not just exclusively for entertainment. It can be used for business purposes. The key, again, is it needs to be used interactively with the user. Yeah, so again, now you've heard me use that term interactively over and over again. So what do I mean by what do I mean by interactively? So let's think of a video game, which is a good example. Everyone who plays a video game has a slightly different experience. So sometimes you get the power pellet and you eat the ghosts, and then sometimes you don't make it to the power pellet and the ghosts eat you. It's always something a little bit different. Everybody that plays that game has a slightly different experience. In fact, every time you play that game, you have a slightly different experience, even if you get really good at it. I mean, you know, how many people broke Glass Joe's jaw there a few times or whatever? I got pretty good at doing it, but it was always a unique experience. So when you play Pac-Man, you're participating. You're not just watching Pac-Man move around eating ghosts in a maze. You're actually participating in it. So it's not like a movie. So that gets you towards the example. I'll move to an example in a second, but So for an AR VR product to be eligible, you have to be a participant, just like in a video game. There has to be some sort of a participation. You have to have a unique experience. So I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to give you an example of an AR product that does not fit this description, one that does not work, and then I promise I'll get to one that does work. So the first product is one that would not qualify. So I'll explain. You can read it up there on the board, but you have an AR dinosaur exhibit at a museum. So what you do is you put on your AR glasses, or you'd have your tablet, and you walk around the museum. And when you got to a certain part, you would stop, either move up your iPad or put your glasses on or something, and then a dinosaur would appear, and then there'd be a write-up on the dinosaur. So it doesn't matter who does this; they're going to see the exact same thing in the exact same spot. So I would assume it looks something like that. Boom. That's not interactive. You're going to see the same thing no matter how many times you do it. There's nothing unique about that experience. So it's not interactive for the purposes of this video game, or of this program. So that's one that would probably be out. Yeah, I'm sure you could do some stuff to make it interactive. Yes, go ahead.
Customize it and made it tailored to, say, 3 different target groups.
Yeah.
So you have the same experience, but it's using a user profile, for example, for the
Yeah.
specific one for a child and for an
Yeah, you use the key term there. So you're going to see me, people that come around, they chat with me, they often hear this from me. Being customizable does not make it interactive. So customization, like changing the colors and all that, doesn't necessarily make it interactive. But it's something that puts it in the right, you're getting there, but that's just customization, right? Bigger letters, smaller letters, different colors, all that kind of stuff doesn't make it interactive. It just makes it customizable. But you could see that you could start adding features. You could probably gamify the thing, and you could probably get it there. But I just wanted to give you guys an example, first off, of one that doesn't work. So keep this one in mind. And I'll list off the reasons here why. It's like I say, it's lacking a back and forth interaction. So it's not being used interactively by the participant. You are an observer. And so you're not having a unique experience. Anybody that does this would have a very similar experience. You might be able to customize it, but still it's a unique experience. Okay, now let's get to a good one. Let's get the one that actually works here. Yeah, so you're going to need your imagination on this one because, being interactive, it's a little hard to explain. But so for this one, we've got like one of those AR wind tunnels. So this is something that would sort of show you the wind, and you would have either a completely virtual reality vehicle, or maybe you'd put pieces of a virtual pieces on an existing vehicle in a virtual reality wind tunnel. So the virtual reality, or the computer, or the program, I'm not an IT guy, but the program would somehow be working with the vehicle and saying, here's how the wind would be aerodynamic around this vehicle. And then I would make some changes and say, okay, let's see if I can make it more aerodynamic or less aerodynamic. Let's see what effect that I can make on this vehicle virtually. So it would look something like this. Like I said, you're going to have to use your imagination. So something like that. You'd have your handset. You'd be able to move things around. You'd be able to walk around the vehicle. You'd add pieces or take away pieces and see if you could make it more aerodynamic. Now, personally, I don't think this guy here should qualify for the credit, because with a mullet like that, I wouldn't give him the credit. But mullet aside, I would say this product's probably going to qualify. So again, why would it qualify? Well, you're able to walk around, you're able to see the entire thing, and you're able to make changes to it. So you're not going to have the exact same experience no matter how many times you do this. It's going to be slightly different each time. Everybody's going to have a unique experience, and more importantly, you're actually working with it. You're interacting with the product, and you're perhaps trying to come up with a goal of being more aerodynamic. Again, it's that unique experience, it's that interaction, it's that back and forth with the computer. Okay, so that's one that would work. So I think you guys can sort of think of the products you work with, and you sort of go, yeah, some of them are in, some of them are out, or most of them are in, or we just do video games, so we're good, no worries. So, okay, so now that we know what's in, what's out, how do we claim this credit? I mean, that's really what everybody would like to know, right? So here's where my team comes in. You guys do your work. You come up with some products, and you say, I'd like to claim this credit. So the first thing you got to do is register with the BC Ministry of Finance. So you go to our website, grab the application. Probably going to involve giving Mark a phone call at some point, and you register with us. You register with us. We give you a number. Then when you file your taxes, your T2 corporate taxes, you put that registration number on the federal schedule, and you send it in with your federal T2. And hopefully the CRA doesn't come a knocking, and a few months later you guys get a nice little chunk of change for your tax credit. So and like I said, we don't do the audit portion of the T2. So you may get a few extra questions from the CRA, but we do work with them. We do try to explain things. They may have questions which we try to answer before they get to you guys. But they've got to do a certain number of audits, so they may come a knocking at some point. And usually the extra information they're asking for is around the payroll and the roles of individuals, that sort of stuff. And we try to set you up ahead of time with what those questions might be, so you're a little bit prepared. So and Mark does a really good job at it. He's been doing this since the beginning of time, so he knows what he's doing. So I'll just give you a bit. Oh, and the other thing is you need to register every single year. So this is a reoccurring thing. It's not that bad, I promise you. Mark's a good guy to deal with. So I'll give you some details here. Yeah, so registering with the BC Ministry of Finance, that involves getting our application form. That's FIN 568. You send it in with the supporting documents. Then you pay the registration fee. Registration fee is up to $5,000. It's less if you have less than, I think, 10 employees. I can't remember anymore. And then we send you a registration letter with a registration number. You grab that registration number. You put it on your Schedule 429. That's the British Columbia Interactive Digital Media Tax Credit for T2 corporations, and that goes in your tax return. Any accountants in the room? Oh, come on. No accountants in the room. All right. So yeah. Be sure and tell your accountant friends about this one.
They'll be excited.
So they include your registration number with the 429, and tell your accounting friends, don't forget the filing deadline is 18 months after your tax year end. So that's the same as SHRED. We tried to make it consistent, so same as SHRED, 18 months after your year end, which your accounting friends will understand, I promise. So I think that's all I had, right? Yeah, that's all I have. So the other stuff I have here is our contact information, the website where I think you can get the FIN 568 on the website. Yes. If not, you can also give Mark a call anytime. He'll walk you through this process. Am I right?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay. But I mean, I have time for questions. I know that Paul also mentioned that there's also going to be a networking session next door, so you can just chat with me or Mark afterwards next door. But we could probably take questions here. Do you have your hand? We have questions. Let's see. I'm gonna go this way because I saw your hand first. Cool glasses.
To change the percentage from 17.5% because Alberta just introduced their
Yeah.
from the giga tax credit, which is higher than 6%.
They had a few funky things in there, right? Because they also had something for, I think, different employees as well. I don't remember if they had regional components. They had a few things that are in there. Now, I know when this credit first came out, the idea was for it to match the Dave credit. That was the film Dave credit. And at the time, the Dave credit was 17.5%. You can ask your accounting friends, I promise. It's now 16%. So they actually lowered that and kept this at the same rate, which I think is a good thing, personally. But so I don't know. I'm not a politician. I don't make the rules. I tell the policy guys when people say they think it should be higher, and I've never heard anybody go, it should be lower. So I tell them it should be higher, but I don't know. I don't have any secret information. There we go. Who's next?
Thank you for this great information. I think one of the reasons some companies are here at SIGGRAPH is hiring. And so you mentioned the incentive is only for DC residents as employees.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what would that look like for bringing in foreign talent and things like that?
Yeah. First off, it's for BC residents. There's a whole definition of what a BC resident is. And then sometimes we get into issues with temporary foreign workers and whether or not those qualify or not. But Mark, I cannot remember the definition of a BC employee. Can you remember it?
Resident December 31st of the prior year.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically, I mean, the idea is basically residency. It's sort of a subjective list of things. For someone who's considered a temporary foreign worker, they might be transitioning from out of BC to BC, and that can, I think CRA's developed a list of things that they accept as sort of demonstrating intent for being a BC resident. But it's really, that would be a case-by-case basis, and it would be something you'd have to contact CRA with. We could probably give you some general ideas of what that is, but things like not owning a house in the first country and maybe buying one here, really it's an incentive program that's meant to create a certain type of economic activity in BC, and that means, that people being paid for the jobs are living here and, and buying cars and houses and going to the movies and all that good stuff, so.
So much information, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, what's next?
So you mentioned a lot of highly graphical interfaces, and I was wondering if that would apply to something that was more data-driven, like a ticketing system, which is technically interactive, where you're interacting with the back-end system, and whether or not, again, like if you were dealing with a highly graphical system and you were dealing with the back-end, say, had a leaderboard, for something like the dinosaur example, does that cross the bounds with that example? And
Yeah. I mean, okay. Well, it's text, image, or sound, right? So two of the three. So you could have text and sound. You could have something like that as your feedback. So that's good. It doesn't necessarily have to be a picture. Leaderboards, maybe. Leaderboards get into a sort of I don't want to say gray area, but it can be difficult to sort of say, are you just tabulating information, or is there something interactive going on? That's one of those ones where you would probably have to see the product and sort of pick at it. I mean, we do our best to say we try to bring things in or explain how it could be brought in, but sometimes really that's a bridge too far. So and that would usually I find leaderboards they're a little iffy.
And then I guess a ticketing system is I know it's technically interactive. Maybe it seems like it's going away from the AR VR, very far away from the AR VR, but it's still an interactive problem.
Yeah, if you can. I've never seen one, by the way. I don't think we've never seen a ticketing system. But if you could explain to me how a ticketing system is interactive, hey, I'm all ears. I tell you, we'll listen. I should have mentioned there are what we call prescribed products. So these are some things that even if they are interactive, they don't work. Operating systems, they can be as interactive as you want. They don't work. There's a few other ones. Adult-only entertainment stuff. Yeah. That's out. Oh, communication. If it's used solely for communication. And I use that word solely for communication because I know video games, a lot of them nowadays have a communication sort of component to them. But if it's solely for communication, again, it's a gray area where you cross the line. But if you're solely for communication, you're out as well, even if it is interactive. So there's a few things like that. But now ticketing is not prescribed. But if you could explain to me how it's interactive, we'd be all ears and be listening. I'd love to see Mark tackle that one. That would be exciting. You can tell I'm an accountant.
Yeah, I don't think a ticketing system per se, just from the description of what I think what a ticketing system would qualify. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that, when you are, let's just say you step out for, it's very highly interactive, right? You're dealing with a lot of people, you're, selling tickets, there's a lot of interaction happening.
Right.
Although it's a very technical use case.
Yeah. Normally it has to be sort of that interactive interaction really has to be between the user and the software itself. So I do something and then the software does something and then I change my behavior based on what the software did. And then it maybe has sort of, I don't know if logic branching makes sense to anyone, but it sort of has a list of options that it can do, and then I change my behavior based on that. I have a goal of achieving something. I can win or lose at that thing. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for. I have an example for the dinosaur AR VR. The example Joe used was not eligible where you're simply walking through and looking at information. An example where that product might be eligible is you're walking through and you don't know exactly where these things are and you have to find them, and you may find them and you may not. If you find them, then maybe more content is opened, you're allowed to go to another place, or you get some points and you're allowed to progress. But I might stumble around, I can't find it. Joe finds everything and he's on to new content that I can't open because I
collect coins and
so that,
do different things.
Yeah, so that's where that type of product might be eligible. So that's the kind of thing where I'm changing my behavior based on failure or success of whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate too sometimes because some folks are perfectly capable of making the product interactive, but some of you folks you're being paid to make a certain product, and it's not your fault. This is what the people want. They're the people that are paying you the money. This is what you've been paid to develop. It just doesn't make the legislation. And here's where I'd usually blame the people that wrote the legislation, but I wrote the legislation, so no, I helped write the legislation. So yeah, back in 2010, we did our best to sort of think, where is this going? But you don't always hit it, right? You don't know where it's going to go for sure. But it is loose enough that it does allow a really good range of products. and it definitely it allows a lot of AR, VR stuff. If you don't include what I would call the 360 movie stuff, to me, that's I don't really think it should be called VR, but even if it's digital, it's still kind of a movie, right? But I'm seeing more and more people calling it VR, and that stuff really would be out. Other than that, most AR, VR, and I guess mixed reality stuff, it's going to be in, just by the nature of it. So, wait, that got people asking, who should I ask? I'm going to go this way again with Karen first here.
I have a question with that 360-degree VR.
Mhm.
Whatever you want to call it. If you, as the user, are walking within that environment.
Yeah, I know you're going. Well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't answer your question for you, but I'm going to just jump in there. You can do something. If you're making it unique, you're inside the environment. You're actually able to interact with the environment. You can start moving yourself into something that makes it interactive. But again, now you're not just sitting there watching the exact same thing. It's slightly different. There's things going on. To me, I liken it to a sort of a 3 or 4 or 5 or player war game, where you can be inside of an environment. Even if nobody's shooting at you, you're still kind of being interactive with the environment. So if you can kind of make it so that you're interactive, you're not going down in a set path or something like that. You can start making your way into interactive. But again, here's where you're going to be chatting with Mark and explaining it. So.
If you can open a door.
Yeah. Oh, opening doors that's beautiful. Yeah.
Okay.
Changing the shape of things. Yeah. You see, it's not that hard. There we go. Okay, this lady here.
Is there federal incentives on top of provincial?
Not for video game or IDMTC, or is there? No, there isn't. I can't think of one. There's for the film tax credits. There are. And then the gentleman, is it leather jacket or is that black leather? I don't know.
I'm assuming the filter company would qualify. So there's a U.S. company founded in the U.S. and then there's a filter company now in BC.
Okay, yeah. So you have a sub here in BC, and you're following BC.
There was one limitation. There should be an equity-based incentive for the employee, right?
Okay, so you deal with the venture capital program, the BC? No.
I think it's very common that you give your employees some
Oh.
things, and that was one.
Yeah. So I know you're kind of getting into the definition of what a salary is, what salary wages are. So I mean, as long as you're meeting the definition of salaried wages, you're good. And you may want to talk with your accounting and legal friends. But yeah, I mean, as long as sometimes what is called an equity program or a bonus program still is eligible as a salary and wage, and sometimes it's not. It's something else. Yeah, and then besides it.
Also work for studios and agencies that do a large amount of different projects per year and has a mixed bag of both interactive and non.
Oh yeah. That's one of those ones where that's a bit tough because these people, like, again, these people are perfectly capable of making interactive digital media products that totally would make the grade here. But I mean, you got to make money, right? You have your clients. So what'll happen is, for 1 year they're making nothing but pure video games, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and all their staff starts making something that just doesn't qualify for the credit. So are they now no longer principally in the business of making interactive digital media products? It's a question we will ask. But first off, if the interactive digital media products are greater than $2 million, well, at least we can include that stuff in. It's the folks that are below $2 million where you have to sort of say, are they really in the business of developing interactive digital media products? So that becomes an issue. Usually I find if it's only one year, yeah, I'm going to say they're probably in that business. They just had some client come in that really wanted something that they had to deliver that just didn't fit the criteria. But again, it's one of those things where you'll be chatting with Mark about it, and he'll try to work it out with you and see if you guys how you guys qualify. Because it doesn't necessarily need to be most of your employers are involved in it. It could also be most of your capital is involved in it. It's what puts you into the category of in that business, but principally in the business of making interactive digital media products. Again, your accountant friend should know that stuff. I saw it. There we go.
You mentioned the film credit. Will you reach out to you? Who would be a good resource to
We're here yesterday. They had Bob Wong was here yesterday with the Creative BC. He's great for if you're registering with for either the production services tax credit or the film tax credit, or if you have a Dave component within one of those credits.
Bob Wong, is he
Bob Wong, yeah. Where's his Paul back there?
Creative BC,
There we go. Yeah, creative.
creativebc.com, and you can find Bob's number. He's the vice president of tax.
Yeah. Well, I said Bob Wong. I'm sure there's other folks that you can contact at Creative BC, but he's the guy I would contact. So there we go. Yeah. I see anybody else? Come on, one more question. Let's do it. There we go.
It is only salaried employees, correct?
Yeah.
No contractors.
No contractors, and this is where it differs. I don't know if anybody knows anything about the film tax credit. You sort of can allow, you are allowed contractors sort of in the film and the production services tax credit. For this one, what those contractors can do, I mentioned the IDM service providers. Those guys can actually apply separately. So as long as you're mostly in the business of, primarily in the business of supplying people that, or corporations that make IDM products, you can apply separately for your own corporation. So
As a sole proprietor?
not as a sole proprietor. Oh, no, and you can't be a personal services business. You need to be incorporated. Yeah. You need to be, this needs to be contracted companies. Yeah.
So like a, okay, I get it.
Yeah, you got it. So,
Applying,
yeah.
to a larger company?
yeah, and usually what I find this would be is audio folks that do pure audio for video games, usually what we find.
Quality assurance.
Yeah, so yeah, the testers, the quality assurance companies. Have we got artwork? Have we ever had an artwork person? I don't think so. We've ever had that. But it would be those sort of folks that are aiding. Like for instance, a large company would probably have this all inclusive within their corporation. Smaller ones would probably contract out. So it's so the smaller folks can go to can still get the same benefits as a large company, but the folks getting the credit would actually be the contract companies.
Would that include like for video game voices or
Yeah, you got audio.
all the?
Yeah, the audio folks. So they probably never touch a computer for programming, but they would do all the audio stuff. So and again, even the workers, the artistic voice people would probably qualify as long as they're BC residents. So so if it's a movie star, they have to be here in BC. But then there's a lot of movie stars in BC. So yes.
So if you're making your own VR game, just myself, to release on Steam or something, or a virtual reality interactive experience for someone else, there's no way I can claim that. It has to be a corporation.
Well, okay. There's a few things. First off, you need to be above 100,000 in salary. So assuming you're paying yourself over 100,000, yes. But yeah, here's the tricky part. Even if I said, yeah, you're totally eligible, you can't claim this because you need to put it on your corporate tax return. Only a corporation can get the refund on it. So it's on corporate taxes. So in that sort of situation, you probably want to take the time to incorporate yourself and just make sure you're not a personal services business. That's all. Oh, for a person. Yeah, individual. Yeah, I can't think of anything for this. Is there an individual component to Shred? I honestly cannot remember. I think there's a partnership. I think BC actually has a partnership version of it, but I can't remember either. You'd think I would know that one. I would say in most cases, if you're serious about this, you're going to find that someone's going to incorporate. I mean, just because just because of the liability factor involved in this. That's my guess. Assuming you have one employee, you want to do that.
If there's any time, if there's just starting out, how would with the cost of incorporation and the application fee, how would that, I guess, where's the break even in terms of the credit incentive?
Oh, I see. Now you're gonna have to ask your accounting friends, but yeah, I think so. If you have say 2 or 3 people, the cost is $1,500 to register. $1,500 to register, and you would need at least $100,000 in eligible wages. So you'd be paying out $120,000 in wages. You'd be paying a $1,500.
1,000.
1,000. If you're, I gotta see if I can remember this. Here's my test. If you're above 9 employees, 10 employees or more, it's $5,000. If it's between
4 and 9.
oh, look at this, 4 and 9, then it's $2,500. Less than that is $1,000 to register.
And it's per employee?
No. That's the corporation. That's your registration. So you fill out your registration, you slap on a check, and that's it. Just for your registration. Yeah. Yes.
I think you briefly touched on this with the eligibility points, but if you're using something that's CMF, does that make you not
CMF. Well, go ahead.
No, not at all. It's only considered assistance for the BC IDMTC if you receive funds in respect of salaries and wages that you also claim for BC IDMC. So it depends on what. Often for things like IRAP and CFM funding, it's very project specific. So say you're doing 3 projects, you get CFM funding over here, you don't even include that for your IDMTC claim, it wouldn't be considered assistance. It's only if there's a bit of overlap specifically for salaries and wages. And even then with CFM funding, I think there's 2 different kinds. One is where you, if you start to make money, you pay them all the money back and you actually have to pay part of the profits back. In that case, I believe CRA is administrating it right now as not being assistance. So it really depends on how things are set up and where the assistance or funds is going to.
Someone at the very back there. Yeah, no, it's an annual registration. I think that's different than Ontario. I think Ontario allows some sort of.
And the other thing is, what happens if a company like every year is doing 55% game and then 45% features, so you'd be applying to like their credits and his credits?
Oh no, you wouldn't be able to do that. You would a corporation wouldn't be able to the film tax credit or the production services tax credit won't allow you to claim the IDMTC. So you'd have to pick one or the other.
So even if you're doing both interactive work and game work and feature work, you can only do one of the other.
Yeah, there's only one set of credits. You may want to talk to the accountant friends about having 2 corporations. I don't know in that case. Pardon me? No, it's this is a corporate credit, so it applies to the whole. It's not product based, even though we look at the products. So it does differ than Ontario if you're more familiar with Ontario. Yes.
So I have an example. Let's say you have a video streaming app and you stream videos, but you have like a really small like games inside of it too. So like for example Netflix, they have like those kids game that they can play around and Netflix app, but it's mostly for video streaming. Right?
Yeah, and I think you just did it right there. Mostly, what is it really mostly for? What are you doing here, kind of thing? And I think well, I touched on it when I talk about communications too, right? Are you mostly doing communications, or are you mostly doing video games? So really, that's what we're looking at. So, I mean, I'd probably look at it, but I go, yeah, what are you mostly doing here, kind of thing.
And how we measure that might be, I mean, it's an incentive program based on salaries and wages. So we might go, how much are you spending on maintaining this platform, and how much did you spend on developing the games? And that might be a way that we measure what's really your business. What are you in the business of doing?
You know, I can honestly say it's the first time I've ever seen anybody come in with a scooter. That is cool. I'm definitely an IT thing. Hey, thanks. That is cool. So do we have any other questions? Any other scooters or anything? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Maybe you've answered this, but so if a business does like 25% interactive and 75% just not part of these claims, can you claim that 25%?
Well, again, so now we've got that $2 million rule where as long as it's $2 million worth, yeah, you're good. If you're below $2 million for those products, if that 25% represents less than $2 million, yeah, now we've got a problem. Yeah. We good? I'm still, okay, one more question. I'll be next door though. I'm here all night. Tip your waitress.
On your boundary of a product, so think of an interactive player, and then the content it plays.
Interactive player, and then
So you have an interactive video player that those content modules
okay.
that drive the experience. Is the development of the player in with the content out, or is the whole thing considered part of the same project?
Yeah, we've touched on this, and we've also had arguments back and forth on that. It sort of depends if it's sort of integral to the development of a specific product kind of thing, or specific products. So that's one I would probably not want to answer publicly. How does that sound?
Well, I guess one way we kind of look at that is the user sort of just a passive spectator? You know, you're just viewing the thing, or is there some sort of engagement?
Completely interactive, but the individual modules they get explained under interchangeable. So,
Right.
you know, obviously we'll produce more content modules than the game engine or the player.
Yeah. And that's the, and when Joe put this program together, that's part of the great part of it. I mean, you look at the name of it, Interactive Digital Media. I mean, you don't know that they built this thing on the back of console-based gaming companies. And I think they did that with some intention, and they basically just have characteristics that make this products eligible or not. And I think there was some wisdom when they did that. They didn't call it a video game credit. So it does allow some flexibility, and something like that I think we'd have to look at. And maybe, and we're happy to do that anytime. You can pick up the phone, you can send me an email, describe what your product is. We don't want anyone spending time or resources, especially spending money for a registration fee if at the end of the day maybe it's not eligible. So we'll do our best to answer those questions anytime that you have time to contact us. Or maybe even next door we can kind of wrap our heads around a bit more.
Oh, great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, Joe, Mark, thank you. It's great information. I really appreciate that. And as these guys have been saying, come join us next door to have some more conversations for the next hour. It's room 103. Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right. Look at you. You want the whole hour. It's a lot of good questions, though. There's tons of questions.
Yeah, actually, sometimes they weren't asking, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna answer the one that I was scared they would ask.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.